Clark Lea is on the cusp of landing a big weapon for the offense in the 2026 class.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, folks? Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the Hoops team is licking their wounds and dusting off from their butt kicking in Norman, but man, they've really got to get it together, travel to Gainesville, and try to salvage the season and recover. Really, in recruiting, there's more commits on the horizon. What are the priorities? What are the priority positions? Is there an offensive weapon coming soon? I think there might be one. I think, like I said, Clark Lea's on the cusp of landing a big time offensive weapon, and that weapon is somebody to fill in the shoes that Eli Stowers is going to leave. It's going to be tight end Adam Jim, 6'6", 235-pound tight end coming in. He was, we're competing with Louisville, Maryland, Syracuse, West Virginia, Wisconsin, all that good stuff. So I think that when you look at a recruit like Adam Jim, he is. You're looking at him. He's coming from the Pennsylvania area, so it's like Big Ten country. That's kind of the wheelhouse of schools like Wisconsin, Syracuse, things like that. And with the recent success that Syracuse has had, they might actually be a factor. But what the comments, what gives me hope on this one, and this is why I think that he's on the cusp of landing this, because I think for the first time, this program is showing signs of, dare I say, stability. And I know some of the people, I know there's a faction of people out there that are still kind of like wait and see or show me type mode with Clark Lea and don't necessarily believe that, he's the right guy for the job and all that stuff. But for them, I think some of these comments are pretty telling as to what the direction of the program is and where they're heading. Right. And he said the biggest surprise for me, and this was a surprise because Vandy doesn't have this type of reputation. They're more for like, hey, we've got some fluky situations more so, and they just don't really know how to operate kind of like a big time stable program. So it's still a bit of a surprise for people, but he says he likes how this program is working towards success. They came off a great season. They're renovating the stadium, incorporating their NIL money, shows they're heading in the right direction. They're recruiting guys to be a part of it. So that statement right there leads me to believe that there's a lot of positive things happening with this Vandy program, and people are starting to take notice. And the more of these that get out there, I think you'll start to see a little bit of success. It's the NIL potential that I've been talking about. They're starting to finally use it. They've got a ways to go to catch up with some of the bigger programs, but it's coming along. And the offense is kind of built and catered in the pass game towards the tight end. One of his comments, and this was an article written by Justin Angel of Vandy 247. So, credit to him. But he was quoted in saying, I definitely love seeing how they used Eli Stowers. They built the offense around him. He says, I think they see my skill set matches with their true Y tight end, Cole Spence, and they're definitely looking for someone to fill both their shoes in a few years. So they like his versatility and his as a receiver and a blocker. And, the size doesn't, being 6'6", 230 pounds as a high schooler doesn't hurt his chances either. But some Big Ten schools are hard in on him. Penn State's probably going to be, if they enter the race, that's probably going to be a tough one to beat. Home State, big time program, all that stuff. They just went to the playoffs. That's going to be a hard team to beat if they enter the race and if they make a hard sell. Indiana's a program that's gaining a little traction as well. But I think honestly, Vandy has a lot to offer, and I think we would be surprised to land a tight end like this out of Big Ten country because of the recent success of some of the schools that are on his list. But I think when you kind of look at the whole grand scheme of things, the whole all the whole narrative, the whole thing around recruiting, just with NIL and transfer portal, just got blown up. Okay, the whole idea of like program prestige and, you know, hey, this program's really good. They're a historically good program, great program. I think the idea of that's kind of been flipped upside down almost. That the ideology is kind of blown up a little bit because it's all about NIL potential. It's all about finding the right fit to help you get to the next level. Whether, you know, that I don't know if that next level just means getting a good NIL deal and maximizing your time in college and then getting a great degree and getting off in the workforce. If that means, hey, you know, I want to go to an offense that is going to help me with my aspirations of being an NFL tight end. Like, I think Vandy's offense showcases the tight end a lot. Penn State's does too, and that's going to be a tough team to compete with. But, you know, I think the way that they got things going there at Vanderbilt, they're on him early. They have just as good of a chance at landing him and sticking the commitment than any other school on that list, save for maybe Penn State, because they're the hometown team. You know, I think there's more upside if you compare Vandy and Indiana, because those two teams are similar trajectories, but Vandy's in the SEC. Vandy resides in Nashville. There's all kind of money potential. There's all kind of things happening with NIL that would lead you to believe that, hey, you're in a really good spot as far as that goes. As far as putting tape together for the NFL, like, you give yourself a better chance. I mean, if you're going to play in the NFL, they're going to find you no matter if you're at Georgia or if you're at Southeast Missouri State or Mount St. Union or, you know, Carson Newman or wherever you are. They're going to find you no matter what. That's their job. But you get better tape, you get better evaluation, you get more, I guess, more leeway as a player if you're playing against the top competition. And, you know, I think if Vandy if you have a chance to go to Vandy, they might have slightly better NIL potential than Penn State, in case you're not quite the NFL prototype tight end. I think you have a better safety net in Nashville. That's just my opinion. I just, you know, you got the bigger program with Penn State. You've got the bigger NIL potential. I think things are starting to move that way. So needless to say, he was pretty impressed, and I think Vandy's pretty impressed with what he brings to the table, both in, you know, as a run blocker and as a pass catcher. I think to me he kind of stands out as a slightly more athletic version of Cole Spence. He's not quite Eli Stowers, but I mean, there's not many people that are. Eli Stowers is pretty athletic for his size. But he's kind of more of that more athletic Cole Spence, and can do some things versatility wise as a passer, as a blocker, as a fullback, as an inline tight end. You know, you could split him in the slot too. I mean, that'd be kind of a bad matchup for some of these linebackers and safeties, but you know, I'm excited about the chances of that. I think he'll get developed in this offense. I think, you know, the stable relationship between the coaches and the players and the staff and the fans and the university. I think everything right now, culture wise at Vanderbilt, is in pretty good. I hate to use this word, I really do, but in pretty good synergy. And so it's a situation to where you're looking at it and going, okay, well, you know, this is something that you can look at. So it's again, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about the potential of this. But what are the priorities at other positions? Like, when you look at recruiting for Vanderbilt, I put out a poll earlier. So what are the priority positions? You know, you look at, you know, obviously tight end's going to be one. You're going to have to replace Eli Stowers. This is his last year, his last ride. You know, what are some of the other positions that you're looking at? Depending on what happens with the running back position, you can never have too many of those at Vanderbilt. So, like, getting a good home run hitting running back, I think is a priority. Offensive line, that should always be a priority. No matter what the year is, you always recruit offensive linemen. I think they made a mistake not recruiting any in this last 2025 cycle. So for 2026, I think they're going to have to make it a priority to get at least 3 or 4 offensive linemen, a couple interior guys, a couple tackles. I think there's some targets I talked about on yesterday's episode that will fit that bill. So, it's going to be a situation to where it's good. So the priorities there defensively, obviously building in the trenches. I think as you build yourself as a program, if you want to be a viable program, you do have to build in the trenches. That's a must. Whether you do it from the portal, whether you do it from high school, or a combination of both. I mean, you get a guy like Glenn Seabrooks. He had a freshman All-American type year, or a freshman All-Conference type year for Vanderbilt. So like there are valuable guys out there to play in the interior of the defensive line. So this is a scenario where, if you can build in the trenches, supplement some of the high school, like you get a couple of like not fully developmental guys, but like you get some guys that are good, and then you get some portal guys on top of that, and you can kind of mix rookie with I think you match rookie with veteran guys. You have a chance to get some of that development, and you have a chance to build some really good quality depth. And if you can build some really good quality depth, that'll be that'll be good for your team. And then, of course, building on the back end, you can never get too many good safeties. I mean, I think getting Vollmer as kind of your hybrid, getting football players like Daniel Vollmer is also good, because you can get guys that are not quite as like linebacker type as Daniel Vollmer, but similar scenarios to where like a Carson Lawrence played everywhere for Macaulay that's coming in for the 25 cycle to play safety. You get a few corners that are like, you may get a guy that's like 5'10", but he's nasty. He's got a nasty streak. He can go get the ball in the air. He's not afraid to tackle. He's not afraid of contact or whatever. So that's kind of what you need at some of those positions. And then you just kind of fill in elsewhere, like athletes, like wide receivers. I feel like you could, I feel like I don't want to say dime a dozen, because that's not quite right, because there's obviously a hierarchy of guys and with different ability levels. But I think you can find guys that fit that mold. You can find guys that can kind of fit what you're looking for as far as talent wise. Like for your scheme, you can get guys that match your scheme, that have skill sets similar to some of those superstars, because like the superstars, you're not really going to be able to pay those guys. You're not really going to be able to make that happen. So it's a great scenario there. It's a good scenario to build quality depth there. Supplement, like I said, with some guys from the portal. I think the portal has been very important for Vanderbilt. So it's just figuring out where your priorities are and figuring out kind of, okay, build in the trenches. Get your running game, keep that solidified, and then kind of just build out the pieces around that. Because I think you got the quarterback figured out. I think you've got, between Jeremy St. Hilaire and Jack Elliott, I think you've got some good pieces at quarterback coming through that are going to be the next in line after Diego Pavia leaves. So you've got some good quarterbacks in place. If you can keep them from transferring, you've got some good pieces in place there. Now just build a run game around them, figure out what their skill set is, and maybe go get you a game changer at wide receiver if you have a quarterback that's more of a passer than a runner, like kind of more of a passing version of Diego Pavia, which I think Jack Elliott is. So, I'm really excited about the direction of the recruiting. I think some things are starting to kind of pick up a little bit. You're starting to see a little bit of momentum now. These junior days, I think they have a lot more to offer. As far as stability and as far as some of the things in NIL that you didn't have a year ago. And that goes a long way. That goes a really long way. So Adam Jim, come on down. Vandy's right for you. And then we'll go from there. We'll just keep building. Speaking of teams that need to keep building, basketball, they're heading down to Florida. What needs to happen? What needs to happen so that there's no repeat of what happened in Norman? We'll talk about it next. All right, Gametime. Yes. Are you looking for tickets to your next big event, whether it's a concert, comedy show, or a sports game? Finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. With Gametime Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Gametime Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Gametime Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. The curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price, no more sifting through thousands of options. I recently grabbed a super deal for a prime seat, and I couldn't believe the value. It was a steal. The seat view feature is a game changer as well. This is my favorite feature, speaking of. And before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like in the venue. It's so reassuring. It makes me feel at ease, right? And the best part, you're covered with Gametime's lowest price guaranteed. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. So are you ready to make your next event even better? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is a phenomenal show. The whole conference, with the shows are great. So what I would do is I would take this schedule right here and go follow those shows. You get a lot of insight on behind the scenes with the enemy. So that's going to be a lot of fun to do, a lot of fun to watch. So keep that in mind and make sure you follow those shows. So basketball, okay, getting you ready for the Florida game. This is going to be, got to figure out what happened really. It's a situation to where, you kind of evaluate it. And I was talking to a friend of mine that I work with, and, we were kind of talking about, okay, what happened? Because he's an Oklahoma fan, right? And so it's kind of like, what happened? How did that, how did it go from, hey, his perspective is, hey, we're down by 13 to Vanderbilt at home. I'm just going to go do something else and, just kind of whatever. And, from Vanderbilt's perspective, it's, hey, we're up by 13 on the road and we're playing well, we're shooting well, we're moving the ball, we're scoring, we're, all that stuff. And then all of a sudden it just all fell apart. And I'm not going to rehash what happened. I'm not going to go back over what happened, but I kind of need to be able to figure out how to put the wheels back on, make sure all the lug nuts are tightened, and make sure those things don't fall off again, right? Because you're going to need all four wheels. You're going to need full tread on the tires to go down to Gainesville into the swamp, because it can get tough down there. And so it's a scenario to where it's worst case scenario, because like you're reeling a little bit, and you're going up against, and you're getting ready to start a run of like top 10 games. This is not a good time to be struggling mightily if you're Vanderbilt. So this is going to be interesting to kind of see how they respond. I'm curious to see, like, is this going to be one of those games to where you let Oklahoma beat you. Okay, so what needs to happen? What needs to happen is this. First thing needs to happen is forget about what happened in Oklahoma. You got trounced. You couldn't score for long periods of time. You were up by 12, then you get beat by 30. The swings in that game, aren't for the faint of heart. Okay, from the player's perspective, coach's perspective, fans' perspective, everybody's perspective, it sent everybody into a tailspin. Even the women's team went into a tailspin and got crushed by Ole Miss. They were down 15. Ole Miss calling timeouts, and they're just, there's a whole controversy behind that, by the way. Not to pile onto that, but I'm not going to get into that. But just a rough weekend for hoops. The women's team, Michaela Blake's all-time leading scorer. That's a program-changing player, by the way. And she's been phenomenal for the women's team. So it's just odd that you get, and Ole Miss just probably this is the way basketball is. You have a really wonderful day. Like, you could be the worst team in the league, you could be the best team in the league, you could be somewhere in the middle, which I think both teams are. They're kind of somewhere kind of in the middle, upper middle, wherever. I don't know the standings in women's hoops. I'll be honest, but in the men's side, the SEC is just one conglomeration, and you got like a few teams here up at the top, like Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, and then like you got a conglomeration of teams here in the middle, and then you got your couple. I don't really want to call them bottom feeders. Everybody's just kind of there, right? And so any team can have a day. Any team can get hot. They can have a day. And Ole Miss on Sunday had that day where they were just on. Everything was hitting. Everything was they were on fire, and they took advantage of a Vandy team that was probably feeling pretty good about themselves, and they probably ventured into the land of a little bit of overconfidence, and they just got humbled a little bit, and that's okay. And the men's team as well. The men's team was feeling good. You had 2 top 10 wins in as many weeks. And you're feeling pretty good. You're feeling like you're starting to get it figured out, and then all of a sudden, life just smacks you right in the face with a 2x4, and that's what happens with college basketball. So the early week games, you don't really have time to kind of sit there and wallow and like worry about, okay, well, we just got our butts handed to us. What's going to happen next, and both teams have got to just regroup and get off the mat and let's go. You don't have time. You're going down to Florida. You're going. I don't know who the women's team is playing next, but whoever it is, probably going to be tough. So you got to get ready. You got to get back up there, and you got to keep slugging away. So what does the men's team? What does the team need to do? What does the men's team need to do against Florida? I'll tell you next. Joint chiropractic. If you are feeling bad, if you're feeling tight, if you need some joints that need to be cracked, I think you need to call Joint Chiropractic. They have 900 locations nationwide. There's one closest to you. You go in. They do a completely customizable plan, and it's customizable with each visit. Like, hey, I might have a shoulder problem one time. I might have something going on with my neck. My knee might be hurting another time. I might have a combination of things. They get you right. So Dr. Nolan in the Bellevue Clinic takes care of me. I've got to get back. I'm in rough shape here. I've got to get back. So that's something that I need to take care of, and you can take care of as well. If you go, they have really good membership plans. They have really good customizable treatment plans as well. So just go 900 locations, pick one nearest you. Let's roll. Joint Chiropractic. You won't be sorry. I promise you. All right. Welcome back. We are wrapping up the show here, talking a little hoops. This is what needs to happen. Okay. This is what needs to happen. At Locked On Vandy is also what needs to happen for you. Follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. So here's what needs to happen. Okay. All the things that could go wrong went wrong on Saturday. And occasionally in college basketball, that happens. Same with baseball, same with football. It's just not your day. You can't score. You can't stop anybody from scoring. You're discombobulated. The crowd's on you. It's going to be a tough environment. It's going to be a tough environment down in Athens, or down in Athens too, but down in Gainesville. So what needs to happen is, I think early on, you have to figure out a way to take the crowd completely out of the game. Okay. And some of that is tuning out some of that stuff. Some of that is being able to handle, like, basketball crowds can be hostile. Okay. And they can really kind of, home court advantage is a thing, not only in the SEC, but in college basketball, because those crowds are right there on top of you, and they're just in your face the whole time. So you have to manage that. That's part of that's part of the psyche that you have to manage. Things get a little tighter when you are playing in front of a hostile road crowd. The good teams, the okay teams, they don't handle that very well. The elite teams kind of take pride in it. That's what juices them up even more. Like, you get an Auburn team, they're not fazed by that stuff, man. They walk in and they just, whatever, boo us, cool. Got it. Come on. The more boos, the better. Right. So it's something that I think, from expectation standpoints, you have to manage that first. Okay. You have to kind of get over that mental, psychological bump, right? You did it against LSU. You won on the road. I mean, I'm not saying LSU is some great team, but you did it. Like, that's a road win. But like against South Carolina on the road, against Alabama on the road, you let the game kind of get away from you because you can't handle those runs. And when those runs go against you on the road, you don't get energized and you start to press a little more. And in this scenario, pressing is a bad thing because you're just kind of left to be, okay, well, you can't do anything right, and this crowd's just going, and then you just try harder, and it's like one of those scenarios where the harder you try, the worse it's going to get for you. So, that's something that they have to manage throughout the course of this game. Manage the expectations, manage your own emotions, lock in, take the crowd out, make it a silent venue. Okay. And that means you're going to have to shoot well. You're going to have to find the rock. You're going to have to find it. You're going to have to shoot well. You're going to have to get used to, you're going to have good warm-ups. You're going to have good rhythm. You're going to have to get to the basket. You're going to have to force your style of basketball onto Florida, right? Press the ball from the minute it gets in. Force them into bad passes. Turn them over. Get rebounds. Run the floor. Try to get as many transition buckets as you can, because if you can steal some momentum, it might get Florida off kilter enough to where this thing could be a game. And if it's a game in the fourth quarter, if you're in it, you have a legitimate shot. And if you can get a massive road win, that'll do something to ignite the program. That'll do something to say, okay, that Oklahoma game was a fluke. Vandy's for real. And so this is their chance to do that. This is their chance to not take as many threes, try to hit a bigger percentage of your threes, try to take good open looks, make sure you can get the ball moved around, make sure you can hit your free throws, all that stuff, substitution patterns, find ways to get Jason Edwards to the rim, find ways to get Jalen Carey down there by the basket, find ways to get AJ Hoggard involved, find ways to get Tyler Nickel, Chris Magnon involved. Like, try to find ways to get all those guys involved in the game plan, because you're going to need probably 7, 8 guys. That's what you're going to need. You're going to need 3 solid performances off the bench, and you're going to need some key minutes from some non-starters. And that's going to be something that, if you don't get that, Florida has a pretty deep bench. They can get after you. They go on some runs, and this is going to get real interesting real fast for this team. So it is again the number 6 team in the country for a reason. They you can't give them anything. Okay. You cannot give them anything. But the bright spot is find Devin McLaughlin. He had 22 points. So that's good. That's somebody you can kind of lean on as well, to take a little bit of pressure off Edwards, to take a little bit of pressure off your bench, but you just got to figure out ways that you can get these guys involved and get more people involved more consistently, because you look at your team's stats, and it's not good. Florida's shooting 46% from the field, and Vanderbilt's allowing 44% from the field. So right now, Vanderbilt's got to improve that number. They got to be a little tighter defensively, and I think they just got to do it a little bit more consistently and force Florida to really earn their points. Even if they shoot at a high percentage, need to make them earn those points and make it difficult. Because if it's the equivalent of making teams drive in football, if you're going to score a lot of points, you're at least going to earn it. And I think that's going to keep some of the scoring down. But for Florida, Walter Clayton Jr. shooting 36% from behind the arc. He has, Elijah Martin is shooting 44.9% from the field. He's averaging 15.5 points over the last 10 games. So the Gators are averaging 79 points, 40 rebounds, 14 assists as a team. So I think for Vanderbilt, they just got to make it difficult to score. Like the football team did. Got to control got to control the rim, got to make it difficult. If you don't make it difficult to score, if you don't make it difficult on them to move the ball up the court and clog up passing lanes and do whatever you need to do, that's going to be detrimental to your chances of winning this basketball game. So game tips at 6. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an interesting one. If Vandy's close, they're a team that has the grit and the toughness to be able to close that out. So that's it's going to be good for them. But anyway, that's all I got. We'll see you back here next time on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Peace.